Welcome to Hello Downtown, a podcast by Downtown Sioux Falls.
This is Hello Downtown, the podcast where we explore the people, the places, and the pulse of our city's core. I'm your host, Brandon Hanson, and every episode we dive into the stories shaping life in the heart of Sioux Falls. So whether you're downtown every day or just downtown at heart, let's jump in. Thank you so much for tuning into Hello Downtown. This is a special mayoral series where we're sitting down one-on-one with candidates for Sioux Falls Mayor. We invited all 5 candidates to participate, and soon you'll hear from 4 of them here. Each conversation builds on their responses from our March Mayoral Forum, which was co-hosted with AARP South Dakota. You can watch that forum on our YouTube channel or listen to episode 18 of this podcast. This is a core part of what DTSF does for the community and for downtown Sioux Falls. We are an advocacy organization, and our goal is just to educate as much as possible and bring to light just who these people are and what they could do for the city of Sioux Falls. Thank you so much for listening. So we're on Hello Downtown, and today I am with Jamie Smith, of course, running for mayor of our amazing city, but born and raised right here in Sioux Falls. Jamie started as a teacher and a coach before serving as District 15 in the Senate and the State House. Now he's running for mayor, like I said, and I'm looking forward to digging into both his story, but also his vision for the city. I know I skipped over a ton of your background. Do you want to just dive in and give us a little overview of who you are?
Sure. It's so fun to be here with you today and be in downtown Sioux Falls, because this really is the heart of our city. And this is really where I was formed, I guess. I grew up at 15th and Duluth, if you can picture where that is. Okay. And went to Lowell Elementary School, live in downtown. But right here, the room that we're sitting in right now here at the Orpheum Theater, I was in Young People's Theater. And so I spent every Saturday here in classes and then so many nights in rehearsals and performing on this stage. The first play I was ever in on this stage was A Midsummer's Night's Dream. And I had a line that I practiced over and over and over. And it was, yo.
Yo.
Yo. I mean, how many different ways could you say, yo? That was my only line through the whole play, but
there had to be subtext and character development
you really had to
behind
develop
that.
Yo. Yeah.
So fun fact, not my first play, but I was in theater. I met my wife. My wife and I started dating, and we eventually got engaged in a show in this theater as well. But our first show together ever was Midsummer Night's Dream.
No way.
Yeah. Lysander and Hermia at USF. So
okay.
I wasn't going to lead with that. I know you're an Augie guy.
That's okay.
I love Augie
There's
too.
no hate there. All right.
Same.
Fast forward years later, my wife had the opportunity of a lifetime. She said that she'd been in plays in high school and college. Then life takes over. She's a teacher. She's a mom, all of those things. But when Mamma Mia was coming to Sioux Falls, she'd always promised herself that if Mamma Mia ever came to the Playhouse here, that she would try out. And the role that she really wanted was the kind of I can't remember the name of the friend, but it's the comedic friend with, gets to sing the part that my sister-in-law ended up getting, Carrie, that she did with Rick Huffman. If anybody saw that show, but my wife got the part of Donna coming off of a 30-year hiatus from theater. And that morning when that cast list went up and they should have just recorded my wife's reaction. It would have got bleeped a whole lot. But let me tell you, it was a moment of panic, complete panic. And absolutely, it was one of the best things that's ever happened to our family. Getting to see my wife on this stage here, being Donna, was just, and for her, it's one of those, I don't know what you call them, but one of those life moments that just, you can't ever get back. It's something about the stage, isn't it? I don't think people that don't do it don't understand it, but my stage is politics now. So
absolutely. Yeah. And, similarly to the theater, there, the countless number of evenings and hours just getting prepared for the big day.
Yeah.
Running for mayor, I know you're a busy man.
No, insane. It's great. It's also real estate time of the year. People are calling, wanting to list. Of course, you don't want to turn them down. Thank goodness I have a really good team that's helping there. But it came out of session this year in Pierre. I'm a senator from District 15 and still doing that, but came into this and it's been a sprint. And June 2nd, though, election day, if we don't get 50% plus one that day, then we have another 3 weeks. That puts us into the end of June. And by the end of June, we're going to know who our mayor is and we're going to know where we're headed.
Amazing. Well, I'm going to get us kicked off here just so we can get to know you as the candidate for mayor. Let's start with a couple of quick hitters. Maybe they're quick, maybe they're not, but and then we'll get into some more meaty questions a little bit later. But let's just talk about your history, your life, your career. Can you describe or pinpoint one moment that really shaped how you make decisions today?
Fabulous question. My life, going through my life, I've always wondered, what am I supposed to be when I grow up? What is it? What is it that I'm here to do? And I've had so many incredible opportunities through education and through work. I mean, I've worked in hospitality, downtown Holiday, and through college, I was a bartender. I've worked in education, teacher and a coach. I've coached all throughout the Sioux Falls schools and met so many great families. I've had an opportunity. I was an orthopedic sales rep that I left teaching to do that. I learned that money was not my motivator. That was a big moment in my life when I was an orthopedic sales rep. Because if that had been my driver, but it wasn't. I mean, I knew I was helping people, but I never saw the end result. A buddy of mine bought Hag Real Estate or part of it, asked me to come join him over there. That was a good sale. But I think that moment of understanding why I do what I do, I also had to work real hard with like life coaches in it. So it wraps into that same idea within the real estate world of, well, how much money do you want to make this year? What kind of car do you want to drive? What, all these things, none of that matters to me. I had a car, I had a house, I all of those things, they're not the best, but they're not worst. I have a roof over my head. That's enough type thing. Right. So we had to really work hard to figure out what is it that makes Jamie tick. And it comes back to that why I really didn't fit in orthopedic sales probably it's because I just want to help people. And there's a lot of people that say that, but it really solidified that for me that I am a servant leader at heart. And so how did I do that in real estate? We changed my model in my brain to, I'm not going to make X amount of money throughout the year. How many people can I help buy a home? And in shifting that helped me within that sales world in real estate, but it also helps me stay true to who I am. And ultimately it's that servant leader. That got elevated a huge amount when I had somebody ask me to come and run for the House of Representatives. And they saw that in me before I even did. So that all comes together, but it's that servant leader. And I think it probably came when I was standing in the corner of an operating room, waiting to give a doctor a knee implant.
Wow. Yeah. Moving on, if you were sitting down with someone who doesn't follow local politics, they don't really tune in that much, maybe they just see the billboards as we drive down Minnesota Avenue, can you explain why you're running for mayor in a way that matters to someone's day-to-day life, the everyday person in Sioux Falls?
Well, you kind of just said it right there. It's because it does matter in your everyday life, right? Why am I running for mayor? Because I believe in this city and I know that I have the skills and talent and background throughout all those things I just shared with you and all the things I've learned throughout my life to be the leader that takes us forward from where we're at today. I believe that we have an incredible city and I believe that we are set up to do so many great things in the future, but we have people that are being left behind. Not everybody is on the train that we want to be on, right? And we want everybody to have those same opportunities that we have here, and make sure that they're aware of it, and make sure that they all have a seat at the table. And so I want to work really hard to make sure that this prosperity that Sioux Falls has is recognized by not just the few, but the many here in our city. And I think we can, I think we're on the right track, but I think we can do even better. I am a coach at heart and a teacher, but when it comes to that coach idea, I put the right people in the right place to do a good job, and then you get out of their way. I'm not a micromanager. I'm a person that says, if you have a great idea, that's great. We're going to give you full credit for that idea and let's go with it. I don't have to be the guy that has the idea. I don't have to be the guy that even gets the credit for it at all. I just need to make sure it gets done. That's been my role in Pierre over the last 10 years, and that'll continue to be my role as mayor of Sioux Falls.
So as you look forward 4 years from now, or whenever the term would end, whether it be one term or two, what are a couple of things that people would talk about that Jamie was successful?
First of all, you're going to notice a decrease in homelessness in the community. We're too rich a community to have as many people unhoused in this community. That's unacceptable. We need to work on that. We need to make sure that that's not a problem. You're going to see collaborative efforts being made throughout our community when it comes to the recidivism problem, moving our penitentiary to a new site. I'm on that task force. We're going to continue that. Public safety is huge to people in this community. It should be huge to every mayor on the thing. Recidivism is a big part of that. Just saw the numbers, and we're between 40 and 50% right now, and that's not acceptable. There are things that we can do in this community, but it has to come down to treatment. I was absolutely floored that we only got $100,000 for the link from the opioid money and from the governor the other day. I think $7.1 million, and we got 0.1. That's not acceptable. We need to work on those relationships that I have in Pierre to make sure that they understand our need here in our community, because those are the types of folks that, if we can help folks get a hold of those problems and then take care of them, they'll be productive citizens within our community that are a good part of our community, but we have to help them. You're going to see a continued effort in our small business community here. I'm sitting here looking at Startup Sioux Falls out the window right now. Fabulous organization and what they're doing. Downtown Sioux Falls, those types of things. But for all of the joy and success that we've brought here to downtown Sioux Falls, we need other parts of town that have that too. We need to create those same vibrant areas within our community that differentiate themselves so they can stand on their own too and just shine, as our downtown really does. And it's really cool. As a realtor, it's been awesome to sell our city to folks when they come from out of town. And so fun to show off the town that I grew up in. And I'm so proud of it and where we're going, but we can do even better. I know when we talked early in this last question here about the homelessness too, that only helps our business owners down here too. They do a really good job of being tolerant and being helpful and all those different things, but it's got to be frustrating. And we've got to work on that in order to just make this community a place that everybody can be successful. So you're going to see those things in my first term, and we're going to take those to the next. You're also going to watch what happens with the redevelopment of the Smithfield over the years. Those first 4 years, there's going to be cleanup. People are really, really driving to see what's it going to be. I mean, you can have those plans and you can go through, but you can take your time doing it. You got to do it right. You don't have to rush. We know we're going to have a big cleanup project, and that's going to take a little while.
Yeah, I want to take a little pause on the topic of homelessness because as I scour through your website, all the other candidates' websites, I think most of our mayoral candidates are looking for some level of public safety to be a top priority. But yours is the only one to call out homelessness specifically in street racing, I believe it was, which
just heard totally last night again. Drove me crazy.
I did too. But we host the ambassador program at downtown Sioux Falls, and so it's the folks out on the streets wearing the red shirts. They're cleaning up the trash, doing the beautiful flower program in the summer, removing graffiti from downtown, whether that's gang related or not, and even interacting with the homeless folks. And so this year alone, so January through April 1, we've already logged over 700 interventions on the street, which is up pretty significantly from last year, from the same kind of time period. What do you think needs to happen? What are some of the first concrete steps?
First of all, it's awesome that an organization like yours is doing something, right? That's not even your calling or your charge, but it is because you care about this place, right?
Right.
And you're steward of this downtown, and you take great pride in it, and we all do, and so we should. But finding those people the right place to be, to get the help that they need, but then having the help that they need, that's the next step, right? And the other thing is people have to be ready for that help as well. Okay, so what can we do along those lines? But I know that the one thing that we're working on, and again, this week I have a meeting for that recidivism task force. It's going to look at what are we doing to make sure that when people, are taking a break from society, being incarcerated, that we're giving them the tools they need to not go back into the same troubles they had. And one of those things, I brought a bill. It didn't make it very far this year, but we're going to work on. When you get out of prison right now, you probably don't have any money. And what are you going to do? They end up going to Bishop Dudley, and so you're out, but you're right back in a system, right? That's not where you ultimately want to be. What can we do? Well, we had a savings plan that we were working on. When you work in prison industries, quarter every hour would go into a savings account, and we'd work on maybe another quarter for restitution, but the quarter that we're talking about goes into a savings account. So when you step out the door, you have some money to rent somewhere, to buy groceries, to do the different things that are necessary to live. The other thing is I did bring a bill and got it passed this year that you can also, an option now is to go back to where you resided before you were incarcerated and not just come out the door and say, hey, I'm here in Sioux Falls, right? So we're working on that too, to help people get home to where the supports are, because we know that helps recidivism as well. So those are a couple ideas on those things. But when we look at it, we need to support organizations like the Link. I want to make sure that the safe home that we have, I think we need to double the capacity over there that we had with county. That was a county and city partnership that's been very, I think, successful. We identified chronic homeless folks that were a majority of the calls. We can do that again. We need to double down on things like that. Mm-hmm. I also have a super out there idea. It's not out there idea, but it's something I'm really passionate about through my years working with my friends in the different tribal nations within the state of South Dakota. I really respect tribal sovereignty. And when you notice a lot of the folks struggling here in Sioux Falls, they're urban Indians here in Sioux Falls. And I started to think about when we go to different countries, and if you're a U.S. citizen and you're having some trouble, you go to the embassy. I have a model in my mind that I want to work with, and it needs to be worked with through the tribes. And I am sitting down with my friends up in Flandreau on this idea that we set up an embassy here for the 9 tribes in the state of South Dakota. And it could be one location that all 9 tribes are represented. I don't know what that exactly looks like. Again, it has to come from the tribes. I know Paul recently had a really good meeting with the tribal leaders here. But we need to work together in an appropriate manner to be a better place. We need to embrace our Native brothers and sisters, and we need to make sure that people have the supports that they need to be successful in life.
Yeah, we work with South Dakota Urban Indian Health quite often down here. The ambassadors typically are the first responders, in air quotes, down here because they're here 7 days a week, 7 to 7 every day. So we often are escalating either to police or to South Dakota Urban Indian Health, or walking someone to the Link or to the Bishop Dudley House, all the places you mentioned. But South Dakota Urban Indian Health is an incredible organization that's kind of working in this space, and we look to them a lot for advice. Right.
And then it's that organization. And then let's think about how we can even support them and build them out. And again, it needs to be tribally driven. It needs to be not us saying this is what we think, but this is together. What does this look like and how do we do it? I think we can be really successful if the right folks, again, put that focus on that. And I would expect downtown Sioux Falls to be a part of that conversation.
Yeah. Well, the phrase "too rich a community to have these problems" is, boy, that catches you right in the gut, I think. So
it's
well
so
said.
true when you think about it. The gifts in this community are amazing, right? But there are folks falling through the cracks.
Yep. Let's shift back to you mentioned establishing multiple zones in the community and kind of capitalizing on the energy that downtown's been able to produce. Just a couple of stats for you before I ask you this question. Downtown, we are somewhere around 14% of the city's sales tax that's produced. On a property tax side, we're creating upwards of 100 times the property tax per acre than a suburban area because of density infill, building buildings higher than one story.
Yep.
Which is something I know I've heard you speaking about. But how do you see these different areas that you're talking about happening and connecting to each other and blending into downtown?
Well, it takes creative leadership throughout our community, and it's not just going to be a mayor. It's going to be working with developers. It's going to be working with landowners. It's going to be working with our universities, our hospitals, and health systems, individual neighborhood organizations, all of those things, all of the above approach, right? But I really have a vision, and I know it's been talked about before, but nothing's come of it, is like a university district. I think it'd be a great place to start. We have the Tally building now. It's going to be USD Med. We've got University of Sioux Falls right there. We've got Augustana right there. We have a lot of housing that Sanford owns in between there. And there's a lot of underutilized land in there. Had a bill too we need to get through that. I tried to establish land banks, okay, and we need them. We need to take underutilized land within our community, recognize and figure out where that land is, get it into a land bank, so then we can dream and develop that into what it needs to be. I think I'm meeting with the Historic Preservation tonight. We're at Longfellow, and when we're talking about that, we have to stay true to our history and all of that and the historic nature of places. But at the same time, we also need to invigorate and renew and all of those things. So just driving today on the way down here, I was driving down the loop, and that whole center circle on the loop, for example, on the outsides, it's your bigger homes downtown to the north. You've got your Summit, your Duluth, your Prairie, all those beautiful Queen Anne's and stuff like that. And then but there's the inside of the old historic loop, that circle is there's some pretty blighted property. There's lots that's been torn down. There's that thing. But if we could do something creative and innovative within that square, it's just adjacent to downtown, right? But if we could figure out that circle in that, how would we do that? Again, I don't have all the answers, but I want to have those conversations. My view of government is that government doesn't have to do everything, but government has to be the catalyst or the person that brings the people together to make things happen, right? We need to provide that space. We need to inspire that dialogue. We need to help guide those types of activities and give the support where needed to make them happen. So that area excites me. University district area excites me as two places to start, but that wouldn't be it, right? There'd be I could see tons of different neighborhoods that things like that would work on. I'm really proud of the folks that did the perch over by Lincoln Commons now, and the neighborhood fighting so hard to make sure that we stay a green space there is exciting. I'd like to go a step further there, even and make like a old town square, like the perch and a couple other things like that around that square would be absolutely fabulous. What can that look like? I was just at Ken's Corner too in an old part of town. Love Ken's, by the way, shout out to Ken's. But they want to do some remodeling there to turn it back into its historic looking like garage. But the interesting thing, they don't fall within the historic district there. So the funds for doing their facade change aren't there, right? What do we do? How do we work on that? What do we do to inspire neighborhoods to do that? I don't have the answer necessarily right now, but it's a conversation we need to have because I'm sure there's a way to figure those types of things out. If there are creative people that want to do those things, how do we get it done?
Yeah. I heard this weekend Perch's wait, even on the wait list, was about 3 or 4 hours. Like they're just doing incredible. People love what they're doing.
Yeah.
So it's a good example.
The food's great. And upstairs, they got the law office, right?
Yep.
So they did two things there. The funny story on that, though, is my grandma in the 1930s lived above, that was a grocery store on that corner. And my grandmother, they went to Augie at the time, and they were living up above in that building.
That's amazing.
Yeah, they got in trouble one day. The police had to come because they were laughing too loud.
That's a good reason to get.
They were playing cards, and if you knew my family, there was never a quiet card game. So
police came because they're laughing too loud.
Yep.
That's pretty good.
Yep.
So back to the University District land banks. What's the barrier right now? Is it just the way the zoning?
We just don't have there's stuff that needs to be on the books law wise to allow them to happen. Okay. And we brought a bill this year. I did. It got tabled in committee. Little game was played. That's the way things happen sometimes in Pierre. We'll be ripe. We'll have somebody bringing that back next year. I was also excited that Greg Jameson got his bill across the line for the penny sales tax on projects if the community would deem them necessary. I think different parts of Sioux Falls could definitely benefit from that, and I think our downtown is ripe for those types of projects. But throughout our whole community, I think there are things we could do, but they have to be something the community really feels strongly that we need, and everybody get behind it before we would monkey with somebody on that sales tax.
Yeah, it's got to take 60% of the vote, or
60% of the vote,
which is a high bar.
High bar. It has to be something the community really, really, really wants and really gets behind and supports. But yeah, Greg Jameson brought that, and I was really pleased that I voted for it. We could get that across the finish line for just one more tool in the toolbox. What it would have done is anytime we go out for a bond, we're paying interest on that bond. And if we do it this way and pay for it up front, you could save millions of dollars on a project by not having to pay that interest.
Yeah. So let's talk about public input a little bit. You've kind of brought it up a couple of times, not only at our forum, but even in this conversation today. You've talked about specifically with Smithfield, taking a breath, being very calculated, being highly collaborative, and have a transparent process. What does that mean? What does that look like? And how is that different than maybe what's happening today?
A lot of big decisions get made, and people really seem to really be surprised, And I think sometimes a lot of things that are done have to be done in confidence and confidentiality, being, during those certain steps. I understand that throughout the business process, but when able, I think we can do a better job when you mentioned it, when you said transparency. I think what you're seeing at these really emotional and highly contentious city meetings lately that we've seen on a couple things when it came to databases in Smithfield here is people just feel real blindsided, and they don't feel maybe that they're part of the process. So there's an education aspect. There's what can we do to make sure that people know what's on the agenda, what's coming up. I know it's by law, we're doing everything we're supposed to do. It's out there. People find their information in different ways these days. And going to the Dakota Scout and finding your legals, I doubt that anybody's reading through those to see, who's pulled permits to do what and where and when, right? And most of the time it probably is, most people don't care, need to take the time and do that, and it's not probably going to affect them. There are some of the bigger ones though that all of a sudden people say, whoa, wait a minute, what's happening here? The process was gone through, right? But how do we make that more transparent? And that's something that's going to take not just me and my ideas, but we'll work on that as a team on what can we do better to make sure that the folks really feel like they had the opportunity to know. And then a couple of years ago, I ran for governor of the state of South Dakota, and my wife and I, after that year of our life, we're like, what did we learn? And what we learned is that people want to be seen and they want to be heard. And that doesn't mean that they necessarily even need to be agreed with, right? Because we're not going to always agree. But if you know that you were seen and heard and understand that, and think about that in relationships you have with anybody, right? If you feel like you were dismissed, you weren't seen, you weren't heard, it's a whole lot different than knowing that you were seen, you were heard, but a different decision was made. And so how do we do that? And that's something I constantly look at as an effective leader is how do I make sure that people knew what we were going to do if we can, and had a part of that. But then ultimately the leader has to make a decision, and it's not always popular. Sometimes you have to do the hard thing, right? Sometimes the other thing we have to give credit to our leaders in our community is sometimes they have different information. And based on the information you have, you make different decisions. But you can also learn and get new information along the way and make a different decision than you made originally, right? That's part of growth and all of those things. So when you see that, how do we do that? How do we make sure people are seen and heard? Something I constantly think about, something we strive to do and do well.
Yeah, DTSF has for about 12 months now tried to play a part in this public input process as well, in being a vehicle for some of it. And ours looks a little different. It's a little more creative, maybe, whether that's our open streets events and we're literally polling people on the street about a certain topic, or just through our newsletters and hosting mayoral forums and just giving education out there to the community at large. Because all this stuff really does matter. And I think what I hear in your words too is just kind of going 100% of the way to the people and finding a different way to engage. We've had a hard time initially with just the engagement piece and like, how do you get people to actually show up or listen or care? But we just change tactics and we try something new every time.
Yep. Just because you can say, yeah, we did it and it didn't work and nobody came, then you got to try something else, right?
Yeah.
You can't stop and just say, I did it.
Can't keep blaming the people.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I actually want to, that brings me into kind of another topic here. It's something we asked at the mayoral forum, but maybe the question wasn't quite phrased appropriately, and I want to take another stab at it if I can. It's about the viaducts.
Oh yeah.
So this has been something that's been really a powerful message for our organization over the past 12 months. We've gotten really deeply involved in this particular project, literally the east to west side of the bridge specifically. We're seeing a large percentage of people using that to get through downtown. That is an arterial street. We're seeing pretty high speeds. We're seeing about, on average 38 miles an hour, and the signs downtown all say 15 or 20. Mm-hmm. Just thinking about that and just the ROI of downtown, what kind of impact does that 100-year project have on the connectivity of downtown in your mind? And what happens if we can kind of flip that on its head instead of people passing through using downtown as a destination?
Yeah, you need to slow the traffic down. You need to shorten the viaducts. You need to get them lower. You need to realize that we're only going over one track now in a river instead of a whole changing, lots of those tracks have been removed under there. It's
the railroad.
Yeah. On the railroad. So it's very different than it was when that viaduct was originally built. And so, all of those things, and we trust city planners and engineers to do that work. Okay. That's not I'm not a civil engineer. Okay.
Me either.
But there are ways that they know through what they know, how to do that, how to slow that traffic down, what to do that. My wife and I, my wife takes kids to Europe. 8th graders going to be 9th graders in the past and travel. And I had the honor of being a chaperone with her. And there was a bridge in London that underneath the bridge, they had a bunch of businesses like restaurants, shops, everything. And when I walked under there, the first thing I thought about was what an opportunity that we're missing, right? This space under a viaduct. And it was such a vibrant place. I can't remember the name of the bridge, but it was absolutely a fabulous neighborhood that was created using something that people were saying, it was wasted space is what initially people probably thought, right? But they were able to use that space. I don't know if something like that can be done. I also have a vision for, and I'm looking again at startup, and I think downtown could be a part of this. In Jackson, Tennessee, they provide incubator space for startup companies at a very, very low cost to no cost for a year or 2-year lease to say, hey, here's you're going to start. I could see an area like that being a spot like that where people get to try out their business, but we expect you to be successful and grow and need to find real retail space then, right? It's where you're going to start your idea. You're going to do it. We're going to take away a little bit of the risk. And then we're going to find you a spot right over here on Phillips Avenue, for example, right? Mm-hmm. Or out of that and keep growing those new ideas.
Ease you into it.
Yep.
Test supply and demand.
Yep. But then that becomes a really vibrant spot in our community where people that want to try out that new thing that might not be all the way baked, but they have to do a plan. They have to come up with it. They're going to get the support. They're going to get to do it. But the risk might not be quite as high for them that they're going to lose everything by trying that idea. I think we could do things like that under a viaduct.
I've never considered that. And that's pretty cool. Yeah. That right now there's about 60% of the folks who use it go right through downtown. And so our question has always just been,
how do we make it a spot that they stop at?
Yeah.
That's
what if it's 60% that stayed or 100% that stayed? What would that do for the economy of Sioux Falls? You know, given the fact that 14% of our sales tax currently is
the other thing we
supported.
have to make sure that it is safe to walk back and forth across.
Yeah.
And if we don't have that walking bridge on the traffic bridge, there needs to be a pedestrian bridge right next to it then.
Yeah. There's all kinds of land that could be developed across the way, but without that, it's kind of a moot point.
Correct.
Yeah. Well, I want to shift gears a little bit and move your brain back to Pierre, if that's okay. Are you okay with that for a second?
Trauma.
I know. So I just want to hear more about your time there, and specifically just talk about how you've talked about how Sioux Falls often ends up subsidizing the rest of the state. I was just doing a little bit of math before you came, and downtown specifically is providing 1% of the state's sales tax, which sounds like nothing, but it's actually a pretty massive number. What did you see firsthand when it comes to that dynamic, and how does it shape your thinking about how we invest back into our own community?
It's something I constantly think about and have worked on for the last 10 years. When people think about Sioux Falls, and I don't know the outstate, thought process of Sioux Falls doesn't need that. They have everything is kind of what you always hear. But we do a really good job with the things that we have. And there's a reason we have them. We gave other people an opportunity to have a prison. They chose not to. Okay. Yep. Well, I liked our city's response to that. I thought we were mature in saying, you know what? We know we need a prison. We know we need a new one. We'll do it. We're going to be a team player here today. But all the way along during that process, I reminded, and if you go back and listen, I always raised my hand and said, but wait, yeah, we'll do it. But remember, we're going to need help. Okay. Remember, we're going to need help. We're going to need your support when it comes to other things. And the other thing that when they do that, we do subsidize that rural way of life all throughout our state. Our ability to be the economic engine for the state of South Dakota, really, not just the city of Sioux Falls, helps everyone. So investing over here does help their communities be their communities as well, and their schools, for example. All of those things come about because we are successful. And when we weren't, when our sales tax revenue was down, especially here in Sioux Falls, what happened? We were really pushed with that was going to be a zero increase, right? This last year. For ed, for all our big three when it comes to ed, and our state employees, our community support providers, and that's not appropriate. When we need to make sure that we are doing well here and supporting that in this community, and when we do that, we all win. I've always supported things going on in other communities as well because I want those communities to be accessible too. When Brookings needs something, when Yankton, Mitchell, Rapid, Spearfish, Huron, I supported the decks, for example, in Huron for our state fair, but also for equine stuff in that part of the state. I thought that was really important. Ag community needs that support. We need it here though, as well. And so I will constantly be an advocate and a cheerleader for those things that, you know what? But I do a really good job, and I've done it in Pierre, of making friends with those people from all across the state so that we do go in for that ask, for that need of support. It's not the, well, you've never done anything for us type attitude. No, I've always done everything for you type attitude, right? I've always supported that. I supported a dam being redone up in Aberdeen just this last couple weeks ago when we were back for veto day. Why? Because we don't want Aberdeen to flood, right? Third largest city in the state. We need to protect those types of things. But when it comes to Sioux Falls, we need to make sure that we're building those relationships, garnering that support, and then getting it. And that's going to take work with whoever our next governor is as well. Knowing just about all of them. There's only one of the candidates that I don't know well that's running for governor. Whoever that's going to be, I'm sure I'm going to have a good relationship with. and we'll make sure that we utilize that relationship to the best of our ability here to make sure that we get what we need.
Yeah, it's an important connection for the seat of mayor and for all of our citizens. This East River, West River divide that's been there for a long time was always pretty shocking to me as someone who didn't grow up here. It's just kind of weird, thinking, hey, aren't we all South Dakotans? But actually I've experienced it a lot at DTSF, even with surrounding neighborhoods and just other neighborhoods and parts of our community in Sioux Falls, just not really maybe connecting how we subsidize the rest of the community as well. And so go ahead. Yeah.
My dad always had a thing when I was growing up, and I remember to this day that if somebody has something that you like or would like, he'd always say, you don't have to take it from them. You just got to ask, how can I get that too? And that's been my mindset. Like, it's not that you have to be jealous of that and take it away from them. It's how can we have that too? And if you think about the world that way, it's a very different, we don't just, have to say that it's either you have it or I have it. It's, we could have it. right. And so how do you approach the world in that direction? That's how Jamie Smith approaches the world, that I think we can both have it.
I love that.
I come out of a mindset of abundance.
Yeah, I think that's really great. We, our mission at DTSF, we've actually updated it even. I won't go through the whole thing, but really it pinpoints the fact that we are the economic engine or the heart of Sioux Falls, quite literally pumping resources into the rest of the community. And we take that work very seriously. We really want to make sure that this is thriving so that everyone in Sioux Falls is thriving. One of our board members even said recently, we have 300,000 people counting on us to do well. And it probably goes a lot farther than that if we're talking about the whole state and the region. But
I'd say the whole state of South Dakota is counting on us.
Yep, absolutely. Well, I could ask you probably 200 more questions, but I'm going to leave it there. Can you tell the folks listening, if they want to learn more about you, where do they go?
Go to smithformayor.com. That's SMITHFORMAYOR.com. Smith for Mayor. And I'm real easy to get a hold of. Give me a shout. You can email me on that. It's easy to find my phone number too. I share my cell number with probably way too many people out there, but you know what? Being accessible is very important. And so I just really want to leave you today with letting people know that there are leaders out there that care about their success and want everyone in this community to feel that success. And that'll be something that Jamie Smith, Mayor of Sioux Falls, will make sure that we keep focusing on, is making sure everybody has a seat at the table.
Fantastic. Absentee voting begins April 18th and election day is June 2nd.
June 2nd already.
Please vote.
Yep. Please vote. Yep. Get out there and do your civic duty. Lots of stuff's going to be on that ballot.
Thanks for joining Hello Downtown.
You know what? It's been a pleasure. Thanks so much.
This is Hello Downtown.